Let's begin.
Hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. If you heard that knocking, it's not opportunity, it's fear. So, open the door on terror and settle in for tonight's story, a retelling of persistence on a new level that I like to call They Won't Stop Knocking.
I can't take it anymore. When I first decided to move out here to the middle of nowhere, it was for peace and quiet. I lived in the country growing up, but during the majority of my young adult life, I've been forced to live in more urban areas. However, hard work and a dab of luck has awarded me the luxury of acquiring a quaint little cottage in the middle of God's green nowhere. One would think that the middle of nowhere would be a quiet place, full of chirps from birds and bugs, rustling leaves, and other subtle sounds that go unnoticed in more populated areas. And that's the way it was for a time. That is, until my family had gone. And now, it just won't stop. It's been nearly a week now, and every night, just as I'm falling asleep, the knocking begins. A loud, constant thudding on the front door, too rhythmic, too purposeful to be the wind or some other natural occurrence. At first, I could barely hear them. I can remember it like it happened just yesterday. It had been raining that night when I had retired to bed. The pitter-patter of little raindrops helped me to drift off into a blissful rest. The rain must have picked up as I slept, because when I awoke, the world outside my bedroom window was mid-torrential downpour. In fact, I figured that it had been the storm that had roused me, and it quite possibly could have been. But as the rain and wind began to dissipate, a low, resonant, monotone sound began to emerge from behind it. It was a faint, very faint, rhythmic, thumping sound. It was so inaudible, I at first thought it to be the last few lingering raindrops from a storm well past its prime. But further regression of the storm revealed a presence I could not ignore. Of course, upon my first investigation, I had no prior knowledge on which to contrast upon. So, I had to slowly and methodically follow the sound that I could barely hear to its source. This forced me into continuous pauses with pricked ears and probing an otherwise silent house for the direction that I should take my next few steps in. Then, I'd repeat the process. By the time I had homed in on the sound, many minutes had passed. To make things even more curious, when I came to the front door and peered outside the small window at the top, the noise stopped. I mean literally, the second my eyeballs crossed the threshold of the bottom rim of that pane of glass, the dull thudding sound instantly ceased. Outside there was nothing. Nothing moved except for the gentle, almost imperceivable sway of dark trees against a cloudy backdrop. There wasn't an abundance of illumination, but enough moonlight provided the means to reassure myself that nothing was there. In fact, the sound itself was so quiet, I was able to brush the instance off as a trick of the mind, possibly the remnants of rain dripping on the roof. The fact was, there was a million possible explanations, but none of those would help me to avoid the work obligations that I had the following morning. So, assured that there was nothing trying to get my attention, and a little miffed at myself for losing sleep over what I thought was nothing, I sauntered back towards my bedroom to finish up the last bit of a good night's rest. I must have slept pretty hard the rest of the night, because the alarm was blaring when I opened my eyes, and had been doing so for the past 6 minutes without waking me. 6 minutes may not sound like a lot to most of you, but I really like to sleep. Because of this, I have my alarm set to sound off 20 minutes before I have to leave to begin my 20-minute commute. Between showering, shaving, getting dressed, and gathering my belongings for the day, 20 minutes is just not enough time to do all this. Now, I instead only had 14 minutes. I could have skipped the shower, but yuck, I hate feeling soiled all day long. Plus, I work as a hiring manager in my new position, and smelling like foul body odor would not present the best representation of our company. I suppose I might have noticed the side yard while getting prepared in the bathroom mirror beside the window, had I had more time to pay everything a little more attention. But when I walked outside to get into my car, I had no choice but to give it notice. The side yard in the back left corner, a place where the earth never seemed to grow any grass, always looking barren and freshly tilled. I'll admit, although I tried my very hardest, I could not shake the presentation of my backyard that morning before I left for work. I tried my best to conduct my interviews, ask probing follow-up questions to answers provided by candidates, basically all the guesswork without the crystal ball, and, in my opinion, I did a pretty good job staying on task. Still, that lingering image, the memory of the after-hours knocking, as mild and subtle as it was, during the earliest of morning hours, and deep down, I already knew the two incidents had to be related. But rationale and a universe dictated by logic and physics held my assumptions at bay, for only a madman would claim to make such correlations with such instances. Without the impossible to literally stare into my face, I could not make that leap. However, that very same night, I would get my chance. When I did finally return home from work after what turned out to be a very long and arduous day, to be honest, the event had all but slipped my mind. I would like to say it was because I had finally wrestled both incidents into reason, but in actuality, the shit-ass drivers where I live and commute itself had me so furious, all of it had faded into the back recesses of my consciousness. That is, until I pulled into the driveway, the side yard completely visible from where I now sat in my parked car. Of course, the sight of the obscurity forced my previous night and morning into the forefront of my thoughts, and once again, I found myself befuddled. At this point, I was more concerned for the barren earth than I was the knocking. Hell, I still wasn't convinced that the muffled knocking noises were even there to begin with. Foregoing the relationship between these two things, I researched any and all causes for the discrepancies presented by the lawn off to the side of my house. Maybe there was too much rain recently. I suppose it could have washed away any seed, I reasoned with myself. Convinced the whole thing was nothing more than a set of benign circumstances, I polished off the night with some Black Ops 3 and a microwaved dinner before retiring at a decent time to my bedroom to hopefully catch up on some of the sleep that I had lost the night before. This time, the sound was not only slightly louder, there was no encumbering storm to drown out the noise. I was sure that I heard it this time, and as I lay awake, my eyes open, still staring into the dark with my ears pricked. It happened again, and now I was sure. This time, I already had a pretty good idea where the sound was coming from, so I methodically made my way, silently, towards the front door, making that my primary object of focus, to start with anyway. As this time, while I made my approach, my assumption was solidified by the increased volume in the knocking, causing me to alter plans and head for a nearby window instead. This time, I hoped to catch sight of whatever or whoever was making this noise, thinking that if I spied at them from the side, that maybe surprise would be on my side as well. Near to my front door, there are two relatively small porthole-like windows, only square in shape, and each covered well with closed Venetian blinds. Pulling the seam apart slowly in the middle, I peeked through the now open area, looking towards the door in order to see the source. Once again, the noise had stopped, and there was nobody there. That didn't make any sense, because I had heard the knocking only a second earlier. The perpetrator would have had to have wings in order to abscond so quickly. Yet, in the distance of the dark, getting closer and closer to the back corner of the side yard, I saw what I can only describe as a shadowy mass sauntering away. It was slow, somewhat wobbly on 2 feet, mostly upright, and moving away from the front door, but at least a good 40 feet away when I had first seen it. Something that had made that distance in such a short amount of time should not be progressing so slowly. Of course, my initial reaction was to check out whatever that presence was, to call out to it from the front porch. But again, by the time I had opened the front door, losing sight of it for only a moment, the thing, or things, had vanished, presenting me with nothing but near-perfect darkness and the tranquil sounds of midnight insects and birds. Inspection, curiosity, and frustration held my attention for quite a while after that, but none of it was enough to force me away from bed and subsequent sleep entirely. That night, I had feverish dreams of police, rotten smells, the dead devouring the living, and hateful, vengeful eyes with a burning stare. I would elaborate more fully on the details of these bad dreams and terrible sequences, but upon awakening the following day, I could only remember discombobulated details of no sequential order. In fact, the only real way I knew my dreams to be nightmares is the panicked state that I awoke in. If there was anything of importance to recall, it had been forgotten within the first 5 minutes of trying to remember. All I know is that when I did open my eyes, my body and mind were both at the end of a fight or flight response. There were no markings on the front steps or porch, no footprints in the mud grass, or dirt, nothing to indicate that anything had been there the night before. But there was. I was sure that I had almost caught a glimpse of it. I was almost self-convinced to go and buy and then set up an elaborate security system, mainly the cameras, but I figured I would give it one more night, see if the time and expense to go such a route would really be worth it. It would have been, and I have since installed said cameras, because what I saw that night, I'm not sure if I can bear it again. On the third night, and every night thereafter since, I have been awoken by more than just a subtle thudding, a very loud, prominent, banging noise, as if something or someone has been pounding on the front door without cessation. I'll never forget what I saw, peeking my eyes through those blinds for a second time. The banging stopped, just like it had done on the previous nights, but on this night, I was not greeted with a sight of silent, dark, early morning, but instead with the image of two bloodshot eyes glaring inches from my own with a burning, hateful stare, weary yet energized and beaming with rage, yellowed and necrotic, unseen in this state, yet more than familiar, more than recognizable. It took me a second, sure, but that was mostly due to denial. There was no way. It was impossible. Yet, there they were, reinforced by the two pairs of gleaming eyes behind the figure, belonging to figures both standing motionlessly in the near dark. It was then that I decided against confrontation and ran upstairs like a little girl, hiding under my covers from both the monsters outside and my penance to follow. The following morning, I skipped work and went shopping instead. It only took me a few hours to hook everything up. I haven't laid eyes on any of them since, only their depiction in the security monitor every single night. They will not leave me alone, and it's not like I can go to the police. But I suppose I've brought this all upon myself. The dead patches of earth in the side yard and all. Now, the cameras have all gone out, and I can't say for sure, but I think they're inside, because the front door is now wide open. Sure, I should have never murdered my wife and kids, but in retrospect, maybe the dumbest thing to do was to bury them all in the side yard.
Well, it seems that if terror follows you wherever you go, you likely brought it upon yourself. So, if you're smart, run, hide, and most of all, make sure to come back again next weekend. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.
Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.